welcome to another fan-freaking-tastic episode of RfRx. My name is Eric Wells, and I am the online programming director for Recovering from Religion. And with me, as my co-host today, is Helen Green. She is an ambassador, a support group leader, a fundraiser for RFR. Oh my gosh, she does wear so many hats in the organization. Thanks so much for being here, Helen.
Absolutely, Eric. It's going to be a great talk. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Best day of the week, y'all. So it's going to be a great talk. So put on your happy faces and get going.
So we're here at RfRx, and you're probably wondering, if you're brand new, you're probably wondering, what the heck is RfRx? This is a production of Recovering from Religion, and this is where we bring on guests and to discuss topics that may be relevant to the folks who are coming to RFR for help. Now, this isn't at all a replacement for the online community or the helpline or the support groups, all of which we'll talk about a little bit later. But instead, this is here to kind of complement those communities. And often the discussions that we have in here, they're kind of brought up or they may shake something loose and have a discussion in the support groups or in the online community or in the helpline as well. The guests here, they provide some good advice. They talk about some coping skills, share their own experiences to kind of better help us understand this like new world that we're living in as we're transitioning out of religion or kind of experiencing these doubts for the first time. If you've got any questions or comments or inquiries and questions are the same thing, but you can email us at rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. And if you want to see some more of this kind of stuff, we have a YouTube channel, and we'll talk about our podcast a little bit later on, but come take a look at all of our shows over on YouTube. There is a ton of stuff. This is like show 115 or something like that. It's just crazy. But I've been talking for a little bit. Helen, tell us about what RFR is.
So for those of you who are not in the know, Recovering from Religion's mission statement is to offer hope, healing, and support to those struggling with issues of doubt and non-belief. So let me explain to you how we offer a little bit of healing and a little bit of hope. So let's start with the healing part. So first part is, so if you are like 2 days out of religion, you're 20 years out of religion, you're just having some doubts about some doctrine, where your faith is going, all that type of stuff, you can either call or chat in with one of our wonderful agents. And you can ask questions, and you will get an empathetic ear that wants to listen to you, offer support, offer resources with no judgment. No matter where you are, you can just call in or chat in, and someone will be there 24/7 to help you. It's a safe space for you to just work out those questions, work out those doubts, and kind of get the supportive ear that you need. Also, too, you can go. We also have a resource page available on our website. This has books, videos, blogs, all these, everything that you need. Like you have a specific question, like if you have a fear of hell, how do you deal with that? And there'll be resources there to help you answer those questions and to deal with that fear in a constructive way, where you're not going to get any you're not going to be talking to your pastor who's going to be telling you that you should be afraid of hell. You're going to get the information that you need to make a decision for yourself. Also, let me move on to the hope part. Okay, so those of us who have gone through this, or no matter where you are in your journey, everybody needs people to share those experiences with. So how do you do this? By learning personal stories, because whenever we hear someone that's been through something similar to us or the same thing, we are kind of like, oh my God, I'm not alone. They get me. So we offered this by our blog and our podcasts. Eric put the links up in there. So you can go to those and let's say you're a former Jehovah's Witness or a former Catholic or a former Orthodox Jew or whatever. There'll be blogs there, information there to help you connect with others that can tell their stories, their struggles, and connect in that way. Now, I know I'm not going to talk about support, Eric, because it's your favorite thing to talk about, and I don't want to be I don't want to be selfish. So go ahead.
Folks, another way we pursue our mission is through the support groups program. And we have got peer support groups. They are all around the world. Most of them are happening virtually now through Zoom, but there's some that are starting to pop up that are meeting in person as we get control of this pandemic across the world. But these support groups, these are face-to-face meetings. This is where I get to sit in front of 6, 7, 8, 15 different people who are kind of experiencing the same thing or have experienced something very similar to what I'm going through as I'm transitioning out of religion or as I'm experiencing doubts. And we've got well over 60 of these around the world, and they are just a fantastic place to maybe tell your story for the very first time, maybe express your doubts for the very first time. And this is a space, a safe space that the support group leaders create for us to kind of have that room to talk and share. So again, it's no judgment and full of empathetic ears, and you won't receive the kind of judgment that you might get from a community who really wants to have just religious people in it and 100% believers. And so these support groups are a great place to kind of, and a safe place to share those doubts and those concerns. You can find the nearest one to you on this website. I can drop a link. We've got it on the website or on RfR website as well. Now, we've talked about the helpline, we've talked about the support groups, and those are both peer support. There's no professional training, and we don't provide that at all for our volunteers. But there are times where we need more than just what peer support can offer. And so what we've done is we've set up a directory where folks like you and I can connect with therapists who have been vetted to ensure that they are following several different criteria. Number one, to make sure that they are properly licensed in their state or in their country. Number two, to make sure that they run an exclusively evidence-based treatment practice. And so you won't run into you won't show up to a therapy session and then walk away with like a bag of crystals to put in your chakra, because that is absolutely not evidence-based. And then they're screened finally for number three, to maintain a secular practice. And so again, you won't show up to a session and then walk away with some prayers or Bible verses to meditate on. Believe me, I've been there and I've wasted several hours and several hundreds of dollars on that. And so that's the Secular Therapy Project, and you can create an account and find a therapist near you, or one who can even do the telehealth at seculartherapy.org. Now, we also have another program that we've set up. One of the things that we have been kind of missing from the helpline to the support groups and the Secular Therapy Project is this sense of community, a wider reach where people can connect with one another instead of just in their local town. And so what we've done is we've set up the online community. This is not a publicly accessible place. Like, I couldn't search for it on the internet and find it, but instead this is a safe space. Again, just like the helpline and the support groups, a safe space for folks to come and express what they're going through. But as opposed to the helpline where it's more like one-on-one, or the support groups where it's kind of a mix of people, this online community can be really, really specific. So for example, if you're an ex-Muslim, we have a room for you in a channel for you in this Slack workspace that we are in for the online community to meet other ex-Muslims. If you're part of the LGBTQ community, there's a channel for you and folks who are just like you've gone through something very, very similar as they've been transitioning out of religion or expressing or beginning to have some doubts. Ex-military or former military or current military, secular parents, ex-Jehovah's Witness, you name it, there is a channel there that would work for you and where you're at. So if that sounds interesting to you, something like you would want to participate in, then I would strongly encourage you to head to the helpline, Let the agent know that you're interested in the online community. They ask you a few questions to see if you're a good fit and shoot you an invite. So, Helen, you want to tell us about the ACD?
Yes. So I am a member of the Atheist Community of Discord, which is a fan-based Discord that is fans of the atheist community of Austin. They are a big support to RFR. They promote us and they're wonderful people. And one of the members, our Nikki, is streaming this talk on there right now. So hello to all my Discord people. And so unlike the support group, the support community we have at RFR, you don't have to be screened to be on Discord. You can just join. You can just find the Atheist Community Discord and come hang out with us. And it'll be a really good time. There's a lot of people there that having interesting discussions, sharing shady memes, having a good time. So I totally recommend that you come join us over there if you just want to meet some awesome people overall. I've made some wonderful friends there. Not everybody is as cool as me, but there's some really good people there, like our wonderful friend Nikki. So you should come over to the Discord. Now, if you have come to these talks, you're like, hey, I want to be as cool as Helen or Eric, and you want to get involved, you should volunteer with us. We are always looking for volunteers, and it does not matter your skill set. If you want to be a helpline agent and help people deal with their doubts and non-belief, you can do that. If you want to help Eric edit RfRx videos, you can do that. If you're good with technical stuff, with online platforming, we will find a home for you. So please consider filling out an application, coming and joining us. We're the Cool Kids Club. And I can say I've been volunteering with RFR for 1.5 years now, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made. I have met some really wonderful people. I found great friends, great support network, and I am very, very grateful. And it is true that when you're volunteering, you know, I'm not getting paid and all that monies, but I am creating really important connections and helping people along the way. And that's what makes it all worthwhile. So please come join us for volunteering. We would love to have you. And you get to hang out with me, which is the best part.
I know, I'm really lucky. I get to hang out with you every so often. I know,
Eric, everybody, listen, your life is better because I'm in it.
You are 100% right. Couldn't agree more. Well, folks, let me tell you what to expect for this evening. This show is going to be just like all the other evenings, all the other Monday nights we've done. For the first hour or so, we're going to have a discussion with our fantastic guest. I'm excited to introduce her to you. And during this discussion, you'll probably have some questions. And if you do, please write them here into the Zoom chat or over there on the Discord. Yes, ACD, we're monitoring that Discord channel as well. And Helen and I will collect them. And during the second part of the discussion, the Q&A part, we will be asking our guests those questions. And then finally, we're going to wrap up the show with some closing thoughts by our executive director, Gayle Jordan. And then after that, we're going to shut the recording off. And you know what's going to happen. We're going to hang out with our guests for a little bit. We've got the hangout, and it lasts for quite a while. It's a really neat, fun time to connect with some of the other folks who attend RfRx, and even kind of hang out with some of us as well. All right. So with that out of the way, with this whole intro out of the way, let me introduce our guest. I'm so excited for this. Nancy Pinto is a survivor of breast cancer and Roman Catholicism. I like that. She wrote and narrated her book, I'm an Open Shirt. After her ordeal, which made a mess of her boobs and her religious faith, she is a recruiter for logistics and supply chain industry and co-host of 2 podcasts. The first podcast is Search SOS, and the second podcast is Boree-qua American. In her spare time, she loves CrossFit and to paint. Nancy, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see everybody. Thank you for that intro.
Of course. You and I have been talking over the last few months about this, and I am so excited for you to be here this evening and kind of share your story and help us out as we go forward in some of the similar situations that people are going through.
Yeah, and thank you all. Thank you for having me and allowing me the space and time. I'm very grateful for everyone tuning in and helping me share. So thank you.
No problem. Now you kind of this has kind of come full circle in some sense for you, because how did you hear about us?
I found you guys during the pandemic. I just started binging podcasts, really got into listening, and at the same time I was going through I've been going through serious doubts about my faith and religion for the last 10 years. But I literally just searched on the words recovery, and because I always call myself a recovering Catholic. So I searched on recovering and religion, and you're like the first search results. And I binged a bunch of episodes, and yeah, that's when I fell in love with you guys. So I felt, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. I'm not a horrible, evil person. I'm using my brain, and everyone else is too. That's nice to know.
I love hearing that. I love it. Absolutely love it. So, where do you want to start with this?
I thought I would give a little bit of background on my upbringing, a little bit about my childhood and the religion I was brought into, and just a couple of key relevant things about Catholicism, which is the branch of Christianity I was raised in. And so I'll start with that, a little bit about that, and then I'll talk about my diagnosis, and then that's all. When it started to fall apart, certain things started happening around that during my treatment and my cancer journey that were incongruent with the religion I was raised with. And then I'll give a bunch of examples of some twisted stuff that happened, and then I'll wrap it up with some tips, some things that have worked for me, that ways that you can handle it if you or someone you know is going through a similar situation.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about these Catholic concepts that are kind of important, and how you got to take them on so much.
Sure. Well, I was raised in a very strict Puerto Rican Catholic family, and I say Puerto Rican's important because we're not known for our laid back tempers and really, relaxed, super strict. Gender roles, patriarchy, and so we lived and breathed Catholicism. And so a couple of the major facets of Catholicism were the concept of not just heaven and hell, but purgatory, that I know not everybody, not all denominations have, but we believe in a purgatory, which is like a waiting room. It's like hell light. You weren't so evil as to merit hell for eternity, but you weren't a saint, so you're not going straight to heaven. So when you die, you go to this limbo where you're still in agony because you're not in heaven. So it's still a scary place for your soul to be. So I consider myself, not evil, not great. So, all right, so I know I'm going to purgatory. And
it kind of sounds like the waiting room in Beetlejuice.
I call it it's Florida's God's waiting room. So it's like God's waiting room in summer.
Yeah.
Down in Florida, because it's terrible.
Exactly. And you don't know how long you'll be there. I would ask, well, when do I get out and get to go to heaven? Well, no one knows, but there's a get out of purgatory card. If you give enough money to the church and you have them pray and do services in your name, that helps. So there's that.
It's still on that? I thought this whole money in exchange for heavenly favors thing had passed away a long time ago. It's still like a thing in the Catholic Church?
I don't know if it's an official thing, but it's still as recently as a few years ago, like one of my aunts passed away, and an older relative said, yeah, we're saying a mass in her name, and we're donating, and we're praying for her soul, so we make sure she's in heaven. I'm like, you guys still believe that? Yes. So some of the
Wow.
churches, I don't know if all of them do or if they have it as part of official doctrine anymore, but there's still that old school mentality that the more prayers you get, the faster you can get to heaven. So
Yeah, I
and
remember when I was growing up, it was implied. Like the priest didn't come out and say like, this is how you get special favors with God, but it was heavily implied that the more money you gave, more tithing you did, the more the
Wow.
more that God really likes that green and will give you special favors so you don't go to purgatory and you can have a good afterlife.
yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
am
just
in the wrong business. I have to say. So what was it like kind of growing up as a kid? Like this is all you knew. This is kind of what you thought the world was like for a long time.
yeah, it was our lives centered around it. You couldn't everything was a sin. When you're a Catholic, everything is a sin. And another big part of it was sex. Like sex was completely taboo, and the only way you were allowed to have sex is when you were married to someone of the opposite sex, and it has to be married in the Catholic Church, otherwise it's not valid. So I was expected to stay home, to stay a virgin until whenever, if I ever got married. And so yeah, this was, and you weren't supposed to question it. And also the Catholic tradition is very, very ritualistic, so there's a lot of rules and regulations. It's not as cool as other Christian churches where you walk in, it's like a concert, and then you get a sermon, and then you go home and you can have your coffee. No, it's not even that. It's very specific rituals and rules and rites of passage. As at 7, I was confessing my sins to a priest. 7.
Jeez, you were
Yeah.
sinning at 7 years old.
Yeah. And so, and sex does play into this because I end up with breast cancer, and that ends up, screwing with you because it's a major sex organ. But yeah, everything around that, and it's not natural, right? I mean, when you're a teenager, your hormones start raging, and I've been boy crazy forever, but that it just wasn't, it was a sin. So there were so many things that were sinful. And we were, what's funny or ironic is that my parents were really big into education. So in that way, they were very progressive. And we could learn about different things in the world and different religions, but because of the religious rules themselves, we couldn't even go to someone else's church or question anything. Or, so I grew up thinking, well, oh, thank God I'm not an atheist. Oh, thank God I'm not gay. Thank God, because I'm in the right religion. I'm in the right path to heaven. And I'm out of that. My family's out of that. But that is the old school thinking. I was born in 1973. So it was still very old school, teachings and things like that. And it comes out of, there's a lot of fear behind that. If you're fed your whole entire life that you're going to go to hell if you don't follow those rules, then it doesn't matter how it looks to anyone else. You're like, well, I want to go to heaven, I don't want to go to hell. It's a matter of my soul and the afterlife. So of course I'm going to go to church, of course I'm going to follow these rules and believe these things, even though they're wrong or they might hurt somebody, or it's not how you truly feel. Like, you just stick to the script. Stick to it. So yeah, so that was my childhood, my adolescence. And then in my 20s and early 30s, because I am a human being, I ended up rebelling, and I lived with a guy, and I had sex before marriage.
What?
I know.
I did too. We're going to hell.
Shame. And I didn't do it once. I did it twice, because after I
did the same thing.
Oh my God.
We're terrible Catholics. We suck.
Terrible.
We suck so bad.
So yeah, but there was that part, and then there was the part of me that still kept the rules, kept everything, kept following, going to church every Sunday, making sure I did what I was supposed to do. And then I got married in 2004, married my husband. That was 18 years ago. We're still together, all that stuff. But then, so 2 years after we were married, we moved from New Jersey. We were born and raised in Jersey. We moved to California. And a few years after that, so in 2012, ordinary time, I get diagnosed with breast cancer. And so 10 years ago this summer, in fact, it was just my husband and I. We didn't have family there. Everyone was across the country. We had a few acquaintances, but we moved to a new neighborhood. We were in LA at that time, but we didn't know that many people. We weren't that close to a lot of people. So I get diagnosed, summer from hell, and find out I'm going to need a double mastectomy and chemotherapy. And so I was terrified. And now I really started to think about, oh boy, what if I die? When you don't have answers yet, when I didn't know the stage, when I didn't know the prognosis, I started to think seriously about my mortality. And because I was raised Catholic and it was ingrained, and I was still going to church and doing all the quote unquote right things, I saw everything through the prism of religion. So I was going to church services and praying and so three major things happened during that summer, during that journey, that really started to flip, because I thought I could lean on my religion during this time. I thought I could lean on the community.
It's kind of like, that's what you think it's there for. Like, you're there for others, and then so, hey, it'll be there when I need it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't even think, I went to church, but I didn't have a church family. But I thought that doesn't matter. I can just, you're representatives of God on earth. You're supposed to be caring and loving. And so priest fail number one. I went to a service and I went to confession because I thought, well, if I die, I want to make sure I go to heaven. So let me go and confess my sins. And I went to the priest and I told him everything. And I said, look, I'm going through this cancer diagnosis. I'm really scared. I don't know what's going to happen. And I kid you not, when he says, well, some people die old and some people die younger. You just need to pray and accept God's will for you. And I was stunned.
Oh.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
That's
not expecting that. Yeah. And I wish I could say that I said fuck you and walked out, and but it isn't easy. It's 40. I was almost 40 at that point. I was 37 or 38. This was my life. This is what I knew. So I thought, oh, well, okay, he's the authority. I guess that's the line. And intellectually, I know that people die young and old, but that's not the fucking comfort I was looking for. So
what were you looking for when you went in there?
I wanted him to say, everything's going to be okay. You're not alone in this. Jesus is with you. God is listening to you. Right. We're all here for you. Please feel free to come to me and talk to me and tell me, I just wanted that, like almost like therapy. Like, please tell me everything's going to be okay. Tell me I'm a good enough person to go to heaven if I die, because that's my main fear is going to hell, because I didn't give enough. I didn't do mission work. There's so many things I didn't do. And I thought maybe I'm not good enough to get into heaven. So I went
that
out
was expecting way too much, Nancy,
so.
Way too much, Nancy.
Yeah.
See, what religion, you just got, like, some people, you just gotta lower your standards, lower and lower.
What? Empathy? What? Isn't this your life's calling to help people? Okay.
Oh, yeah, ye of little faith.
Yeah. Yeah, just accept it, right? So what if you're 30 something and you're in the prime of your life and you got all these plans and goals, and just deal with it. It's God's will. God wants you to suffer and die. So
Yeah.
so
What Nia number 2 then come along?
so number 2, I said, well, maybe this was a fluke. So I went to a different church, a different service not long after that. And this was right before I was scheduled to go in for surgery. And I said to this new priest, told him the same spiel, and I'm really scared. And he says, oh, okay. So he tells this time I'm with my husband, and he says, after the service, come to the altar. Okay, so we're sitting up on the altar, and it's an empty church, and we're sitting there. And he's like, I'll be right back. And he goes into his room, and he comes out with a little vial of oil. And there's a they call them sacraments. There's like a ritual that Catholics give people that are really ill or dying, and they say a prayer and they anoint you with oil. So he takes the vial, he opens the vial of oil, and he puts oil on my head and does a little prayer, closes the vial, and then he, without a word, disappears back into his whatever they call his room, and his changing quarters. And so Chris and I, there was no closing. It was just oil, go. Okay. So my husband and I are sitting there waiting, and we're sitting there, and all right, is he going to come out, ask me my name, ask me to follow up with him? 5 minutes turned into 10, and we're like, okay, Chris is like, where the fuck is he? And he never, we were there about 15 minutes. He never showed up again. Just,
What?
okay. It just felt really cold. So I walked out of there saying, this can't be again. They were following the rituals and the rules. That's all by the book. That's correct. That's holy. But the humanity was completely missing in a way that I was just shocked. And after devoting my life to following all these rules, trusting these people, it should be where you walk into any Catholic church anywhere in the world and you get the same treatment. You know what you're getting. And so I thought I would be getting some sort of humanity. And it wasn't there. And I'm like, okay, this isn't right.
These are the leaders. These are people that you go and listen to every week, and it's kind of supposed to be their job, and what you expect them to be there in your time of need.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know if it would have been different if there had been a female leader, but that's not allowed in the Catholic Church. So it was just, this dude. And I love guys. I'm not knocking men. I'm just knocking the church's stance that females can't be leaders. That's bullshit. So
well, I think that's an excellent point, because like I had not even considered that until you said something and then when you said it, it made total sense. Like, oh my gosh, this guy probably had no idea or couldn't possibly fathom what you were about to go through and the fear that you had. And I'm really, really glad you said that, because it hadn't even considered come up for me until you said something.
Yeah, it's just too bad that he couldn't see past that and provide,
Right.
It's almost like they didn't want to, I don't know, they didn't want to deal with it. So yeah, it just felt wrong, because even if whatever you believe about God or the divine or Jesus, we know Jesus was a man, and we know he hung out with the sick. So I'm like, okay, with females. And so that was, that felt shitty. And
I mean, the women were just attracted to him because he was hung, for sure.
Eric.
Oh.
He was screwed first.
Oh, sorry.
But also too, like, the priests are trained in counseling. They're actually supposed to counsel their flock, and I know that, like, you're going through a very horrific experience, and you're facing a very, very long battle. And for someone to just not even say like, I'm even like, I'll pray for you, I hope you're going to be okay. If you need an ear to listen to, someone to listen to, shoulder to cry on, I'll be there. Cause that's what they're supposed to do. And them to be like, well, fuck off. I don't want to deal with this because you happen to have a vagina and I don't understand this issue, and leave you alone is disgusting and terrible, but it says more about them as people, in my opinion. So
yeah, for sure. I don't think that every priest and every religious person is like that. Definitely not. That's just how I came to experience, that was my experience when I was going through that. And hey, who knows, maybe that was a good thing, because it got me to ultimately question everything and really, I don't know, change and grow. but yeah, it wasn't fun at the time. I felt I started at that point, I started to look at other churches, and I wish I could say I walked away right then and there. This process has not been so cut and dry, so linear, because there was a lot of fear too, like, well, I can't leave the religion, this is what I know, and this is, but I started to open up to different denominations of it. So I tried Lutheran and Methodist and other ones, and even non-denominational, but still Christian. And I would go to one service one week and then a Catholic church the next week, just to make sure I wasn't putting my soul in too much peril. Just keep part of it like a toe in the Catholic waters. And I'm even embarrassed to say that, but fuck it. It's just what fear does to you, and
you're describing, but a lot of people do that. Like, you're not the only one. There's been a bunch of us that have left religion, and what our particular religion, and we start like, well, let's try this hat on, and let's try this hat on, and see if someone's going to give us, the right answers, what feels good, because that's because you've been told if you stop believing in God, it's going to be real bad. So you got to start, you play that, that lottery, hoping you get it right.
Yeah.
Did you, with these, I know there was a third kind of thing about with these two priests, do you feel like it, when you walked away, where was the flaw with you? Was it with the church? Was it with God? Was this kind of where you started to the cracks to get formed in your own system?
Yeah, the flaw I felt like was with organized religion, because at that point I was still believing in God, but I thought that these people that were claiming to be his representatives on earth and making these stupid rules that I had to follow all the time, and I felt that the flaw was definitely with them, with the way that they were twisting their beliefs or interpretation of Jesus's life. And for whatever reason, I squarely blamed religion at that point.
And if you think that they had treated you the way that they that you had expected, do you feel like you'd still be in the Catholic Church today?
Ooh, good question. I probably wouldn't have left it that quickly. But I don't know. I think eventually something would have given. Because I'd always, there's always some stuff in the back of your mind where, things don't, especially as you get older, right? And my age, 30s, 40s, people start to get ill. Like you're exposed to that kind of thing a lot more. And then just teachings don't jive anymore. Like, oh, the fact that the standard answer of, well, it was God's plan and we just don't understand it. This just doesn't fit anymore. So I think I would have eventually gone somewhere else or stopped. And another thing was, I feel like looking back, moving away from my family from New Jersey to LA, where I got to meet other people with different beliefs and non-beliefs and the most wonderful people. And I've learned so many different ways of thinking and perspectives. I love my family. That was one of the most painful things I ever had to do was move. But I would have stayed in that circle, in that Catholic, merry-go-round for much longer. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes total sense. It's kind of interesting how when you get out of this insulated community that whether it's family or religion or politics or something, when you get out of it into a group of diverse people, then you kind of start to change a little. I know that happened for me. And when I talk to some other people, it happens all for them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it works for people, that's great, but it should work for you because you've thought about it and you believe it, and it's good to you, not because you're forced and you're going to go to hell, and if you eat meat on Friday at a certain time of the year, like it's, that's a sin. Like, no, we don't need to add this nonsense to life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So incident number 3, the third and final nail in the coffin.
Great segue with the family thing. So there were certain people that said they would be there for me. So my surgery was scheduled for September 6th, 2012. My birthday was September 7th, so that was my birthday present.
Happy birthday.
I couldn't believe the timing on that. Yeah. So certain family members said that they were going to come out and be with me for the surgery, and they didn't. So for whatever reasons, they weren't out there. And my mother-in-law actually came out. So not a blood relative, but family anyway. And it's taken me years to reframe it as from family wasn't there to mother-in-law was there. Wonderful bonding time with mom-in-law. So, what really killed me was that it's family that was super religious and believed in God and followed all the rules. And then when it came time to get on a plane and be with me, they couldn't. And, this is really, really difficult for me because I don't want to bash my family for not being there. I love them. And I feel kind of sad because it must have been some sort of fear, whether it was, I am scared to get on a plane and crash and die. And because we have all that fucking baggage from the afterlife hanging out in our subconscious, we have maybe fear of seeing me sick or seeing me, with my boobs taped up, like no boobs, and just, I couldn't even walk. Like I needed help getting up, and not boo-hoo me, but just, this was the reality. Like I was recovering from surgery and facing chemo, and maybe they couldn't handle it. I don't know. For whatever reason, they couldn't, and I blame religion for that too, because I think that it's such a harsh teaching. The other thing could be like people will leave it up to God. Like they'll say, well, I don't need to see you because I'm just going to pray for you. And that's important. So I don't need to be there. I'm going to pray for you. And I know God's going to take care of you. God will take care of you. All I need to do is pray. And then the real work doesn't get done. The real work of the getting to the person and being at their bedside. So, and they all did come eventually at some point during treatment for a little while. But that really left a scar. So I thought, wow, okay, well, here it is. The rules trump the actual good deeds yet again. Like as long as you stick to church and you stick to the God and the prayer and that's what counts. So
this was an incredibly like scary surgery. It wasn't like removing gallbladder or an ingrown toenail or something like that. This is something that is going to like permanently or maybe modify kind of how you look going forward, how people see you or how you even see yourself. And to not have the people that you thought love and cared for you come out and see, that's just, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was tough. Like I know that if if I had a kid, we don't have kids, but if I had a kid, and I don't care if they're on Mars, if they're going through something like that, I'm going to find a way to get to Mars. So, so yeah, that was really hard to, and at that time I couldn't really deal with it. I had to put that shit on the back burner because I thought, well, I have to conserve my energy for healing and being well. I have to stay positive. I can't, well, I suck at confrontation as it is. And that's part of everything too. Like, you're not supposed to, be angry or feel hate or all that shit's a sin. But yeah, I said, I can't really get into this right now. I'm having surgery in a few days. I have to concentrate on healing, all my energy on healing, positive things. I had another family member, a distant family, not distant, but close, but not close to me really anymore. But they posted an article about how chemo will kill you eventually. And so that was a family member. And so all that, I maybe in hindsight, I should have said, hey, what the fuck are you doing? And gotten it out of my system. But I just said, you know what, I'll deal with it later, or someone else will deal with it for me. I just had to concentrate on myself and getting better.
Well, knowing your limitations is a strength. So, and also too, and some people, like I remember when I went through a serious illness like 10 years ago, and I found one who were the people that really cared and who are going to show up, and two, that a lot of bullshit that would normally piss me off didn't matter at that time, and I just learned to let shit go. So that's one of the things when you're going through a major illness. It's just like, I don't want to really deal with this, it's too much, I'm just gonna let it go.
So yeah, you get it. All I wanted was like Golden Girls on 24/7. Happy shit all day long.
Yes. What did that kind of leave you? You had these 3 events that really sort of punched you in the gut, one after the other. Where were you left with that?
I had a lot of I had a lot of questions, and unfortunately I couldn't really have meaningful conversations with the people that were, the players involved. So there was a lot of just on my own, a lot of writing, a lot of bad taste. And honestly, I left the church, the Catholic Church, for sure about a year later, because, and I wish it had been an overnight thing. But when my husband remembers the date, it was like October something of 2013. And I said, for the billionth time, I am so scared of going to hell. And he's like, that's it, we're not going to Catholic Church anymore. You need this doctrine out of your head. And I'm glad he said that. And then, so over the next few years, I went through a process of going to different churches and continuing. And then I was going to a non-denominational for a while, because their philosophy was more God is loving, you don't have to do all this shit to get to heaven. You're just there, just believe and you're there. And so that was more comforting. I wasn't ready to let go yet of all of it, because it just seemed so scary to go through cancer, to not know if I was going to live or die, and completely let go of belief, just in case. What if I'm wrong? So it wasn't like a complete smooth break. That wasn't for a few years. I think right around the pandemic, I couldn't take one more sermon about, like, there was just so much through the years. And I couldn't take one more sermon about God's will and why are things happening, and so many unanswered questions. Right. That's the thing, Eric. There was just so many unanswered questions. When people would say, well, oh, God cured you, something that simple, like, well, that's great, but my aunt died of a horrible cancer and she didn't do anything wrong. Like, she was love personified. So where's the flip side when you say God cured me? The flip side is what happened to the other people. And the other, I really started digging, deeper and deeper into my own, like, rather than just accepting the belief or the standard answer, I kept on questioning, like, why? So illness, this is another fun thing. You're supposed to accept suffering and illness because it cleanses your soul. And it's like an offer it up type of thing, or you sinned. So maybe I got cancer because I dared to watch porn, or I had sex, or I was on birth control. I was on birth control for 10 years and it was actually for a medical reason, but I was secretly happy because I didn't want kids anyway, but I couldn't tell anybody that because that's fucked up. You're supposed to want kids. And, in the church, it's wrong to not want kids. So I started thinking, like, well, why did I get cancer? Because I was on birth control. Oh my God, I brought this on myself. I'm paying for my sins, but then that's good because then my soul is being cleansed. Suffering is good. The martyr syndrome. And like, no, that makes no sense. What about children? What about anybody? Nobody deserves that. So these things just weren't making sense to the point where it just, I couldn't be sincere anymore, and really, and accept it anymore. And it's still, I'm still in contact with my family and they're all still super religious. So it's hard to get to shake that, as much as I try to not talk about it, it always seeps back into conversation somehow. And then I have to stop it. Like, I don't want to talk about this, or, yeah.
So what did you do to, like, shake off the last fragments of guilt of leaving religion around?
I dove into, I started looking for support online. So that's where I dove into, like, looking for podcasts, and I found Recovering from Religion. And then I started wondering what other philosophies thought about the afterlife and sickness. And I stumbled upon another one called secular Buddhism. So secular being the key. And I realized, the way of thinking that I was brought up with is not the only way of thinking. And there are wonderful, intelligent, caring, kind, compassionate people who believe different things or don't believe in God at all. And that's okay. I would never think anybody will go to hell except me. Like, I didn't give myself a pass, but I would never put that on anybody either. I would never think anyone would deserve that. So, so I just listening, just getting support, talking to my close, the people the family I've established here finally in LA through the years, the people that were there for me, that showed up regardless of their religion, or, I don't, we like having our Sundays back to watch football or do whatever we want, and not worry so much about it. And I can't keep living with that doctrine. Whatever you feed your mind is what is going to take root. And I just can't do that anymore. To live a quality life is believing in hell and believing I'm going to go to hell and all this. So I've just chosen to fill my head with other things, with knowledge and different ways of thinking and philosophies, and once in a blue, I may say God, this or that, or somebody asks for prayer for something. I don't want to take that away from them in their time of need. But yeah, I don't feel guilty anymore for not going to church anymore. I once in a while I do, when I get a headache, or I'm like, oh God, is cancer back? I'll say, I hope not. And if it is, I hope that I'm fine. And so I hope someday that fear of hell will completely go away. Because rationally, I know that all this stuff doesn't make any sense. And even if there's days I believe in God and days I don't, but I don't believe in him the way that it was taught to me. I think that's not that a real God wouldn't have made us and then set us up for failure by making us human beings and then want to drag us to hell.
That
doesn't make sense anymore. So.
Yeah, backing up a bit, you had mentioned how you sort of almost blamed or you talked. Let me rephrase this.
Mhm.
Some of the conversations I've had with folks in the support groups and even on the show, when they were religious and they got really really sick, they kind of blamed themselves and almost were resigned to like, oh, this is just God's will. And I've seen it several
Mhm.
times too with just religious people, like, oh, and the people who are left over, like, oh, this is God's will. This
Mhm.
God took them up to heaven before we wanted them to go, but He needed
Mhm.
them there for some reason. Did you kind of? You sounded like you kind of went through that yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. They definitely was the mindset was this is God's will for you, for whatever reason, accept it. And some people went so far as to say, don't get treatment. And
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
because
God.
yeah,
That's
that's the
terrifying.
scariest thing. Yeah. They're like, maybe they'll, maybe there won't be a tumor there. Or
Mm.
I had people come out of the woodwork too, for better or worse, when you announce on Facebook what and one girl I went to high school with said, oh, just pray. A lot of people in my church who had cancer were saved because they prayed, and the ones that died was because they didn't pray hard enough. And these are things that have stuck with me through the years. Like, this is horrible to say to someone. I had someone else in the family say, don't let them cut you. Don't let them cut
Jeez.
you open. Just pray. It must have been, your faith wasn't strong enough, or you had stress, and God will take you through this. Um, and yeah, it's you're not supposed to question why. You can't get mad at God. Like, I was never mad in a why me, because everybody goes through something, and I don't think I'm any better than anybody else who goes through anything, or is not deserving somehow. But the way it is, it's like you're supposed to be happy about it. Like, okay, Jesus suffered on the cross.
I have
Oh,
cancer. This is
that's
going to be a good time. Let me tell
nailed it.
you.
Oh wow.
Your
Yeah, I
sins are
can totally get that.
cleansed. Yeah. Um, so
This
it's a
kind
little
of
bit
thinking,
twisted.
yeah, like the kind of feedback you were getting from other folks, it's almost like a blaming the victim type of mentality that they were.
Mm.
Well, it's not almost like it is a blaming the victim mentality that they're giving you. Like, oh, you need to pray harder, or you don't have enough
Mm.
faith. But ultimately, you were healed in spite of your faith.
Yeah. Yeah. It took a while to get through that too. Like,
Did
well,
it?
okay, because everything, you have to look at everything. Even, a trip to the corner store is looked at through the prism of religion. So I'm like, well, okay, why did I get this? Why did God choose me to, choose this for me? And why it wasn't just, okay, I'm a human, this is nature, people get sick, shit happens. Like, no, it's got to be imbued with this hugely um religious lens.
Mhm.
Like,
um
God's trying to teach me a lesson. There's something I'm supposed to
yeah.
be learning out of this, or you're supposed to like gain some kind of like divine knowledge or something out of it. I've heard those kind of things too. Like, well, God
Yeah.
won't put you through anything that you can't handle, and that type of messaging and stuff like that, which is very toxic,
Yeah.
because instead of focusing on yourself and the illness and doing the work and that you need to do to heal,
Mhm.
your brain goes to, well, am I doing this for God? What is God trying to teach
Mm.
me? Maybe I should just try to pray it away, that all that stuff. And that's where, people make really bad decisions based on
Mhm.
that religiosity that gets into their brains, and it's frustrating because I remember I went through, not to that extreme, but I did kind of go like, maybe this is a lesson I'm supposed to be learning, maybe this will make
Mm.
me a better person and blah, 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 blah. No.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you do question it, you're made to feel guilty about it. I remember
Right.
even from as young as Sunday school, I would ask questions. They're like, you're not supposed to question it. So then you've got that guilt on top of that for even questioning something. Okay, God's God, he can't handle a question. He gave me a brain, didn't he? Isn't that what you believe? So I'm using it.
Honestly, the folks who are telling us that they got through this cancer because they prayed, those are the ones who lived. Those are the ones who got through it. We don't know how many people like prayed every day, every minute of every day, and still passed away because of the cancer, or still got really, really hurt because of the cancer. So to me, it's just anecdotal evidence that doesn't at all hold any helpfulness
Right.
when we don't have the people who were praying every day with us because they died, or it's a really biased population.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for kind of sharing this with us. I know that this is kind of a scary thing for a lot of us, and there's some folks here who may be going through this as well. Do you have any thoughts on what they could kind of do when they're faced with a similar situation?
Yeah. Actually, I have a few things. First of all, know that it is not your fault at all. Whether, whatever you did, watched a lot of porn or had whatever it was, it is not a punishment from God or the universe. There is not anything you did wrong. You did not deserve this. So no matter what anybody is saying, absolutely not. I would say protect your mind. Again, I kind of mentioned this before, but whatever you feed it, that's what's going to take root. And if you're constantly listening to religious programs, fun, quick little story. I was during one of my recovery days, I couldn't sleep. It was like 2 a.m. And I flipped on the television thinking, I said, I'm going to put a religious program on. Maybe God's there or Jesus is there and he's, healing, and I'm on pain pills or whatever. And the program that comes on, there's this really lovely story in the Bible about if your eye is causing you to sin, pluck it out. So you don't go to hell. And
that's perfect.
That was a fucking comforting show I tuned into at 2 a.m. Takes a lot. So I do not. If you know that there are things that are damaging, that are people that are super religious, and it's just not resonating, and you don't want these damaging messages, do not listen to them. Listen to RfRx, listen to anything else. Happy things, positive things, not religious things. So protect your mind, just feed it with things that are uplifting and where you feel supported and you're not alone. Talk to those people that, will have your back without judgment and without proselytizing.
That is such a powerful bit of advice. I think that goes way beyond just if you're going through an illness, a serious illness or what have you. Man, I'm really, really glad that you brought that up, because it's something that I have had to work on for a long, long time. And really, really glad that you said that.
Yeah, thanks. There's make your own informed decisions. And people that, we've kind of discussed this a little bit, but yeah, people that are religious will just try to tell you what to do and it may come from a place of love, and they may not realize that they're being harmful, but make your own informed decisions about your body and your treatment options and what you want to do. I listened to everybody. I made the mistake of listening to people and taking in way too much information. And I'm just lucky that I had a husband that said, we should really do the chemo thing and the surgery and go through this path. And I'm glad I did, because it's very dangerous to do something not based on, in my opinion, not based on the science of medicine, and just based on hope and prayer. So make your own decisions. Don't, take charge of that. Don't listen to anybody else on that. And it could save your life.
Yeah.
And then as for what to say, I know that there are people that really, you don't want to be a dick about it and be like, oh, I don't believe what you believe. Your beliefs are bull. So I would just say find a nice, maybe a diplomatic way. It might, because it could be somebody you love very dearly that's just trying to help. And you could say something like, I love you. You're important to me. I know that you're concerned, but I'm really I'm set. I'm really overwhelmed right now. I'm set with my treatment options. So I really would rather talk about things that we both enjoy. I know that this is important to you and I'm glad it's important to you, but my experience is a little different. Maybe we could talk about your weekend or the Yankees or whatever. So yeah, let's keep it loving. I love you and thank you for being in my life, and bookend it with these beautiful sentiments, but make it clear that you'd rather not talk about religion with them. And set boundaries, like whether everybody's got their own way of announcing, some people are very private about their journey and some people are very public about it. And if I had to go through it again, I would upfront say or announce and say, I am kind of similar to what I said before. I'm set with my information. If I need anything, I will let you know. Please be assured. Thank you so much. And that way they know that you will come to them. People want to help, they just don't know what to say. But that way you can set the boundary and express what you need to say so that you're not bombarded. And also so you're not resentful, holding in anything that you might want to get out and you can't let go, but you don't want that eating at you either. You don't want any resentment to build up. So that way you get it off your chest. And then get a bodyguard. A bodyguard. One of my friends just went through cancer, and she, right off the bat, with friends, family, everybody, she said, anything you have to say, you run it through my husband. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's perfect.
So
I never thought about that.
Super helpful. Yeah. Just, I don't care what it is, whether you have a suggestion or medical thing, a story, I don't care what it is. You want to send me a card? It's filtered through my husband. And it worked. And she had her boundaries set, and that way it saved her from bullshit or drama or unwanted advice, any religious stuff. So yeah,
that's
get your body
cool.
and I think I covered them all. But yeah, get support, express yourself, write. Do not feel alone, because when you're marinating in these religious things, it's very scary. It's very tempting to just want to go with what you've always known and what's comfortable, but you're not alone in your questioning and in your doubting, and there are people, so seek them out. And I think I put in the notes, there's the secular Buddhism that I had listened to, that is just for some real common sense guidance and thoughts about life and the afterlife and things like that, just really uplifting stuff and real. And then My BC Team was one other resource that I wanted to shout out, because they are like a Facebook for survivors and people going through this breast cancer journey. So I met wonderful people on that site as well. And yeah.
So these tips are fantastic for people who are kind of going through what you went through, some sort of really traumatic illness. What about on the other side? What would be something that, let's say, I could do for my wife if she was going through something like that? How would I best be able to be there for her, or for for them?
Yeah. Know that, well, whatever she wants to eat, make sure you have in stock. Chris had to make a midnight run for chocolate once because we were out and I started crying. So yeah, I would, just let her cry if she needs to cry, scream if she needs to scream. Like, don't stifle. A lot of times people will want to just calm you down or make you feel better. In the long run, it doesn't have the consequence that they wanted. So I would say just let her have her time of freaking out and screaming and yelling and get it out of her system. So there's no stifling. Just telling her she's beautiful all the time. I was very lucky. I have a husband that didn't care that I lost my boobs. I had a boob job, but not everybody chooses to do reconstruction. I also had a girlfriend whose husband said, I can't do this. He couldn't be with her for surgery. He didn't think she was attractive afterward. Like, this is fucked up stuff, but it's real. Unfortunately, there are assholes out there. And so tell her she's gorgeous, no matter what the operation is, where the surgery was, whatever it is, that body part is beautiful. And be there for whenever she needs you for whatever appointment. Hold her hand, and be there, take notes. Chris, I know I'm shouting out Chris a lot.
Who's Chris?
Chris is my husband. So he read an entire book about breast cancer that my oncologist had written, and he took notes on the diagnosis that pertained to me. So because there's so much information and it's really, really overwhelming for the patient. And don't let them go on Dr. Google, whatever you do. So take all the notes for her, do the research for her, and just let her know whatever it is she needs to know. If she has to be on medication, do a chart. Write out a chart with dates and times and the type of meds and when they need to be taken, and keep track of all that. So just do these practical things, really, really help a lot. So from the practical to the emotional, there's so much.
And kind of going back to, like, as you were going through this, kind of going through your treatments, what were some of the things that you experienced that you didn't expect to happen? Like, I don't know, like, I know that you kind of talked about your family, but did you have some experiences that just you never expected to happen, or hallucinations or something? I don't
know. Like bad stuff, or
well, just something like, oh my gosh, the chemo got me so high and I freaking loved it, or I don't know.
What did I not expect? I didn't expect to be cool with walking around LA totally bald. How's that?
Oh.
I had a wig. I wore wigs for a little while, and then one day I just got tired of it. I would just come home and rip it off. And I said, can I walk around like this? Totally bald. And I did. I put makeup on, a pretty dress and all that, and I got myself out there. And people were so amazingly sweet. And this is LA. And
wow.
Doors were being held open. People were smiling, offering to take our picture. And they were, so that was a really cool thing that happened. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Oh, well, we have got quite a few questions for you. Okay. You ready to kind of move on to the Q&A part?
Sure.
We're getting a lot of love for Chris here in the chat.
Yeah, you're a good husband. Good for him. He loves you. Gross.
I know.
Ew, gross. Yeah.
Get a room, you two. All right. One of the questions that we have is kind of, do you believe that humans have souls? And if not, what helped change your views?
Ooh, really good question. I do still believe we have souls. And like I mentioned, my aunt had passed away a couple of years ago, and she was like a second mom to me. And there was just something at her funeral where I just had a sense of she's not in that hole. Like she's still alive somewhere, but where I couldn't tell you. I just know that there was a spirit. So yeah, I think I do still believe in a spirit and in a soul. I just don't have the answers what I believe happens after, but I think that there is one.
Got it. We got another question here. When you left the church, do you feel like you lost some friends or family? It still seems like you kind of are in touch with your family, but maybe not as closely as before.
I am, yeah, I'm definitely still close. It's family that I can't, and I don't want to ever break from, but in some ways it's a little bit more shallow, I guess, unfortunately, just because I would like to be able to talk about these concepts and and I can't. And I get it, I guess that's just some people they'll be entrenched in it forever. That just will not be part of our relationship. As for the church, when I was the last couple churches I went to, I was going, but I wasn't part of the community. Like in the past, I had been part of it. I had volunteered and done all this, helped within the services and things like that. But the last couple I hadn't. So I don't really feel like I lost church people, although, it's jolting. I have another good friend that's still Christian, and I told her I didn't go to church anymore. And she said, "You better start going to church again. I don't want to be in heaven without you." And it was so jarring, so jarring.
So if you could go back and talk to your pre-cancer self, what would you say to her?
Ooh, I would say, whatever's in the back of your mind about these fears or any of these questions that pop up once in a while, you better start looking deeper, start questioning this stuff a little bit more deeply, and try to figure out why it is that you are still so attached to this church, and why are you still going? And and my life was, in my day-to-day life, I embrace everyone of everything, but I was still going to this church that was, with its stupid rules and its really rigid, terrible traditional belief patterns. And so I would say to myself, why are you still in that? You're an adult. Why are you still so scared? And where's this coming from? And start talking to other people now. This is a serious part of your life. It's not just, I'll just go and who cares? It's just, just Sunday in church, who cares? I'm just checking off a box. You're devoting your time and your energy to this. And now you can see that once you were faced with that mortality, that's when shit got real. So don't wait until shit gets to that point. Start questioning and addressing that now. Don't be afraid to do that.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that is really great.
Now, Nancy, you wrote a book. I'm going to go ahead and share the cover of it, but tell us kind of a little bit about like how you got to write the book and what it's all about.
Sure, thanks. I've always liked to write, and when I was diagnosed, I started writing emails, just email updates to my family, and one of my uncles wrote, and he said, you're a really good writer. You should write a book, because my emails were becoming, I was writing, and they were becoming more than just like doctor appointment updates. They were becoming stories and sharing. And then I would also journal, and then I would make these posts, these social media posts on my BC team. And so he's like, you should write a book. So I started to compile everything at some point and just and say, is there a way that, hey, maybe I can put this to good use and share my experience with other people in this format. And I've always loved to write. I'm not a trained writer or anything. I've just always loved to express myself that way. And then it took a few years, but I put everything together. I pulled out emails that I thought might be cool to include. So it's my journal entries and my emails to my family cleaned up and organized and thrown in with my stories and with my experiences and priest number 1 and 2 and those kind of things all tied in there. And then other stuff about, like, it's not only cancer, but it's all the other things that I've gone through in my life that maybe my experience can help others, whether, my move across the country, changing jobs, dumping a fiance, and that's how, finding my husband, and, all these crazy things. And I just sort of wanted to share and put it out there and see, just see if one person, if it makes one person get a mammogram, my job is done, do that.
Perfect. Well, Nancy, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story and sharing some of the tips and things that you found were really beneficial to you kind of going through this and even afterwards. Thank you so much. It's really been inspiring. And I hope I never have to go through this with someone I care and love about, but I'm now that much more prepared because you came and talked to us about that. We've got a hangout afterwards. Do you have a little time to hang around for a bit and kind of talk with us a little more?
I would love
Perfect.
to. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, thank you. This was wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story and your journey and sharing your strength. And it was just really, really wonderful. And on top of getting it, like, take care of your titties, ladies. Nancy will tell you, take care of your titties.
And I guess guys, take care of your prostates. Titties and prostates, huh?
Titties and prostates.
Nancy, before we move on to conclusion, do you have any to wrapping this up? Do you have any final thoughts or things that you wanted to say that you hadn't yet?
No, I think I've gotten everything out. I appreciate all of you, and I'm so glad I stumbled upon Recovering from Religion, and I thank everyone for your time and for your questions, and it really means a lot to me. And if when you share the links, if you have any questions and you want to DM me privately, anybody with any questions going through something, I really am an open shirt. I am not shy about sharing any part of my experience. So please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Well, folks, that's going to wrap up the discussion for this RfRx. We've got a little bit more for you.
So if you have an itch for more RfRx stuff, please go to our YouTube channel. Words are hard. All of our previous recordings can be found there on a bunch of different topics, subjects, some wonderful guest speakers, some great education can be found on there. So please do that. You can also find it. We also have a podcast, so you can find the RfR podcast on wherever you listen to your podcast, like I do on Spotify. Also, if you have any questions, comments, inquiries, hate mail, tell us how beautiful we are. Please send us an email. If you have a suggestion for a guest, please send it there. Please send us emails. We like emails. We also have our blog that I mentioned before. So we're going to go to our blog, and everything about excommunications and recovering from religion can be found there.
Folks, thanks again for joining us. We want to hear from you at the end of every RfRx. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll and kind of get your feedback. And while this poll is going, like I had promised at the beginning, I'm going to bring on the incomparable Executive Director of Recovering from Religion, Gayle Jordan. Gayle, what have you got to say for this evening?
Good evening, my brother. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Nancy, I am so moved by your story. I can't imagine simultaneously going through the deconversion process and going through your medical trauma, and your sharing it was so frank and open and vulnerable and all of those things. And I'm so grateful that you found us, and I'm so grateful that you were willing to come and share with us. And if everyone will look around, hubby Chris has opened his camera so we can all wave to him too, because you were getting all kinds of love in the chat, Chris. And what that was one of my main takeaways, Nancy, is you talking about how important it is to have a hero, to have a person that will support you and run interference and take care of you. And what a beautiful story that was of the two of you, and how you managed that, and how you worked as a team through all of this stuff. So Eric and Helen, thank you for, as usual, wonderful job hosting. You always make it so fun and so entertaining. Sasha was behind the scenes, stomping a troll or two. Nikki runs the Discord, so thank you, Nikki. I think I've gotten most of everybody that was part of it. Everybody else who came out, thank you for coming. Again, Nancy and Chris, thank you so much for sharing your story, and everyone enjoy the Hangout.